And that's what this show is all about. America's music.
Where'd the songs come from, Sam?
Why, they were the songs that people brought from their native...
It is interesting to note that with the syncing of the audio, because I could not be bothered back then with trying to figure out how I could load in the entire America Sings audio into SFM, I literally just put my phone on the max volume, held it up to the mic, and recorded it that way in sections. So that is why the audio engineering, so to speak, back then was a little trickier because the clips themselves were mute because they were the recorded audio from my phone and I couldn't use that, so I didn't render them with that audio. But as you also may have noticed, this is rendered in 2024 FPS and in 720p because back then I kept forgetting to set it to 1080.
So the monkey thought 'twas all in fun.
Goes a weasel.
And that squirrel, I'm so happy that squirrel had jiggle physics because there was no model of a weasel, so I had to improvise. And with that thing being able to jiggle a bit, I basically only had to move its root. So I didn't have to animate the squirrel itself.
They were most elegant for everyone to hear. Yankee Doodle sing.
And for those transitional shots, because in the actual attraction, it's dark. There's no light. You can't see anything. So all these transitional shots, I had to think of something for myself. And with some of the sections, that was harder than with others. For instance, for this one, I had to pick themes that were not too close to the Western theme, but I also couldn't have it be proper jungle because the south of America doesn't have proper jungles. Like for instance, there's this map of a swamp, and that hadn't been uploaded back then, had been created. So I had to use the overgrown upward location, and I think it came out relatively, to give that feeling of a wooded area. But if I would have had that swamp map at my disposal, I would have used that one, no doubt. Yeah. So, with the original America Sings, there were 4 geese. There was a geese quartet in every section. However, at I believe the final 4 or 2 years of operation, they nabbed one of the geese from the 2 first sections to put them in Star Tours. And reflective of that, I animated these 2 sections, the southern one and the western one, with just 3 geese.
Kentucky home, 'tis summer, the home folks are gay.
Yeah, you can see how the pipe I used was jiggling just a bit, and that's because that pipe is not a loose pipe model. That is actually one of Medic's cosmetics that I just placed in Engineer's hand. And if I would have just downloaded a loose pipe cosmetic, or I would have just used the Demo Man beard mask, the beard pipe, because the beard with the pipe, that's not a jiggle physic, but this is. So it looks stupid.
It's the good life.
The corn tips ripe and the...
Also, I've used this map where this is filmed on. I believe it's called Farm Feud. It appears 3 times in this animation. In the transitional shot, and this shot of the old Kentucky home, and this shot.
Now, the Swamp Boys.
Oh, I went down south for to see my...
Okay, so this scene is actually the entire reason that I wanted to do this project. Like, this entire project was because of this scene. Because in the attraction, there's the crocodiles, there's a raccoon that plays the harmonica, and there's frogs. And the frogs, they sit in the water on the lily pads, and they could have sort of a cappella the song along with them. But there was no frog model, that had a movable mouth, so I had to use the croaking hazard, made by Emperor Fias, actually the same person who made the Kara model. And if this is the one scene where I started to notice how difficult animating scenes with more than 2 characters would be, because notice how the middle character just completely Notice how the middle character, he swaps from looking at the left one and the one on his right all the time. He's not like looking at one of them and then slowly averting his gaze to the other one. That's because I animated the one on the far left first. Then I animated the one on the far right, and then I plopped him in the middle. And I would have done that differently now, of course, which is, why I've done this project, so I could tell, like, now I do that differently. But if you just have a look at him, he doesn't sit still. And also, because I didn't use the IK rigs, the inverted kinematic rigs, the hands do not keep on the same position on the guitars and the banjos, and it is a bit distracting. Oh, here. A beautiful example of how my rendering and my rigging was absolutely garbage back then. Notice how the texture over here is all grainy on FemScout's forehead, and that is because I didn't actually update the render settings, so it renders them as you would look at them through the the work camera, which does not alter the engine's shadow and illuminations at all. So that's why it's all grainy. But also, notice how, because I didn't use IK rigging, that hand is not staying on the same spot on the tub. And another thing is, with the first anime chapter of Animatronic Sings, I did the mouth movements. I did that all manually. In SFM you have these sliders, where it's like lip fold up, lip fold down, lip V, lip W. No, W is not an option. Lip H, I believe. Jaw H. And I did all of that by hand. I tried to sing the song to myself, think about what my lips were doing, and try to animate that in the engine. That does lead to some sections with the human models looking very off, because I did not know that there were sliders specifically for making the characters make certain movements with their lips for certain letters. Like they're called phonemes? Phonemes? Phonemes?
Phoneme.
The valley so low.
With this one I tried very hard to match the sound of the guitar. I can't play any instrument, so the movement he is doing is bogus, but it is synced to the actual music. Which I know annoys a lot of people, because a lot of animators do that wrong, even, big Disney productions. But still, I tried.
Birmingham jail.
Goes the weasel.
Yeah, here's another very good example. Notice how her mouth is sort of open all the time for all of the letters, even letters where you wouldn't have to open your mouth all the way. Now, with the animal heads, that doesn't make any difference because they have big mouths anyway, but on the humans it just looks wrong.
And now let's journey on that way.
Giddy up, you all.
Well, Yankee Doodle headed west.
And for this, when that sound played, the bell. Oh.
Giddy up, you all.
That sound played, the original theater where America Sings was located would turn. And that is why, with every end section, they are back in the theater map on SFM. I can show you that in just a second. But this is the theater map of SFM, and I just turned the camera in the direction of the attraction.
And moving with a big load. Onward west the trains roll.
And also animating that horse was surprisingly fun. because I've been around horses a lot in my life, so I had to do the little ear flicks, the flicks of the tail. Like that's the sort of things that I like doing. So you'd be surprised to know that in the next section, which was the Wild West theme, I only used a horse twice. And for one of those sections, it isn't even in shot for most of the time. So let's just move on to the next section. And for every new iteration of the project, I kept using the outro of the previous video. Now that's not bad, but because they use the oldest watermark that I have used, I kept having to manually put it back in about the same spot, and you can tell between here where it's located now and here that it is like the old one was slightly squat. And this one. So with this one I wanted to use I believe I wanted to use this map because by that time Sheep on the Line had already come out, so it was like haha funny reference. But this one, the next shot, is that no points for guessing where this is a reference to.
I've been working on the railroad to pass the time away.
Here, for this one, I had to use the Great Western Hall model, color it black, and I added a shovel in place of the cowcatcher, because back then there weren't any props to do that properly. I'm so happy that we have like the Scotsman cowcatcher set in order to properly do that now with locomotives, because oh lord, I can't keep adding shovels to the front of locomotives. But also, this shot is animated in 60 FPS. Why did I do that? The rest of this is animated in 30. Okay, so this scene has another story. For this one, whenever I had to use a human model, an HWM model, I extracted the sound from the America Sings audio file, which for this one I also recorded by holding my phone up to the microphone, and I then adjusted it where necessary, because the raw exportation of sound translated to the mouth movements, which is just it's a function that SFM has, it's called extract, and then that word that I keep forgetting how to pronounce, it's phonemes, I believe.
Phoneme.
And but the rough animation of that it is very rough, so to speak. It's very extreme. It is the same animation that the Source engine itself uses when characters in Team Fortress 2 say voice lines. They kind of sync the voice lines with what the Source engine thinks what the mouth movement should be, but it never translates one-to-one. And usually I just adjust that a bit when I load in audio, try to sync it to a model's lips, and then want to use that as the basis for the talking animation. But for this one, I forgot to adjust it. And there is a section where I switch between doing it manually, or at least doing it via the extraction and doing it manually. And it's very obvious when it happens, because the extraction is very, the movements are very rapid, they're not very smooth. And then the manuals, they are smooth, but they're not quite right.
Chisholm Trail, Damataya, yippee yippee yay. Come and tie, yippee yippee yay. Now I went to the boss to draw my roll, and he had me figured $9 in the hole.
And I still didn't do the rendering, by the way.
Shot the hole in my sombrero.
Now, okay, so I don't know why I added a Pirates of the Caribbean reference here. I just did, but don't ask me why. I can't remember.
Who would do a terrible thing like that? Was it Pancho from the rancho? Did he do this because I kissed his wife?
Yeah, okay, he's saying those letters, he's saying the F, but there's no need for it to be that toothy. And that's because I did the extraction and then tried to manually change it a bit, but, you know, because I did not use the actual sliders for the phonemes, I'm just gonna say it like that, I don't know what the actual word is, I keep forgetting. It still looks sloppy. And this one is animated in 60 again. Ah, yes. TH really likes this scene. I don't know why.
And kept them on the run.
One day he met a bandit.
Who was a whole lot better. Now Billy's dead.
Oh, it looked so wrong. Like, the way the camera... Like this. The camera's... The turn. Oh, it's so rough. Oh. Alright, but for the rest of this video, there's not really anything happening, so we're gonna move on to the video that had a year's worth of a gap between entries, because I simply just forgot to work on America Sings on time that year, and I had a lot of work to do, so I didn't finish it on time.
The gay nighties were upon us now. The country was in full swing. People heading for the cities had to do their own thing. Each time the people sang a song, Toon Smith wrote another.
And the benefit of course, having that big of a gap between entries is that I sort of could improve a lot more. It's weird. There is a definite curve of diminishing returns with this one, because there was definite improvement between chapter 1 and 2, but after 2 and 4 it's barely noticeable. I don't know, you have to you have to see to understand what I mean.
She may be somebody's mother, come let her go her way.
And if something seems off about this one compared to the last animation, it's because with this one I started to give in to IK rigs, so that's why this one looks arguably much better. And like I said, with these sections the original Geese Quartet was still intact, so there's 4 here now. And by this point I had learned that there was sliders for the phonemes, so, or whatever that word is, I don't remember. So that's why the facial animation doesn't look as Mass Effect. Oh, this scene. It took me so long to figure out how to rig that skirt properly to the engineer. And you can still see the skirt is floating in place at some points. And, oh, it took so long to try to get that right.
And now, Blossom Nose Murphy.
Sweet.
Okay, so in the original animation, the original attraction, Blossom Nose Murphy was a goose. However, when you're working with TF models, there's only one option you can you have when trying to animate a drunk. Oh, this one. This one has a story to it. This model is a decommissioned one. This one didn't have the facial animation sliders implemented. So when trying to make this one sing, I actually had to animate the more familiar FemScout model, do the facial animations, and then copy-paste them onto this model. And that doesn't always work. And I only found that out after I completed this. So if I would have done all that work, and it hadn't worked on this model in particular, I would have cried. Oh, that would have been so much work down the gutter. And in this shot, a very familiar prop appears. Can you tell what it is? Actually, there's 3 familiar props. I mentioned Emperor Fias earlier in this video, didn't I? Yeah, about that. Oh, very poignant. Look, when the medic on the left opens his mouth wide enough, you can see what looks about to be his tongue. Or at least the dove's tongue. That is not his tongue. That is the medic's head. That is still visible through the mouth of the dove. Usually, when I was animating the doves, I would then uncouple the rig. I would then shrink the medic's head to a point where you couldn't see it anymore through the dove's mouth. But for that one, I forgot, which is why you can still see it. And I believe I did the same with the sniper models, the spy models with the ravens, and I think I also did it with Sam at one point, but I can't for the life of me remember what scene that was. And now we move on to the most recent one, the one finished this year, Modern Times. Oh, how I improved. Okay, fun fact. The bus you can see in this shot was originally going to be one of the London prop pack buses. However, I thought it was very backwards that a video about America would have a typically English bus running around, so I eventually decided against it. Of course, couldn't have a Flying Scot video without Scotsman popping up, so there she is on the American tour. For this one, I did try to make them all do basically the same dance, but not as much where you could say like, oh, I copy-pasted it all. Because also, very subtly, I increased the height of some of them. Like the one with the flat cap of the umbrella is the tallest and the blue one is the shortest. So I couldn't copy-paste the animations directly. So that was all done manually. And this shot also has a story to it. I ran out of animal heads to use. I have used every animal head that was not broken in the SFM files in this series of videos, but I couldn't find one that fit FemScout, and I looked for so long, and on the original attraction, this song is sung by 2 cats and 2 foxes. And I realized that there was a cat model that was added with the end of the line pack. So basically what you're looking at now is an actual cat where the actual body has been shrunken down so to fit between FemScout's shoulders to have the cat look like it is an animal head. However, because it then doesn't have the rig for the facial animation, it doesn't have any facial movements in it, all you're looking at now is the movement of the lower jaw. I just moved it up and down like loosely, like it was an actual animatronic. Okay, so this one also has a story. I asked my brother, well, what hand does what on a piano? Like, which hand does the low notes, which one does the high notes? And he gave me the answer the wrong way round. So, now, the animation on Big Daddy's hands, in the attraction it was a pig and its name is literally Big Daddy, looks a bit off because I literally had to copy-paste the movements of the hinges that I used for the hand movement in the IK rig form onto the other hinge, which is why it doesn't look quite right. And for hinge work, I always use a barrel model, because with a barrel you can tell when it is standing up straight. So it's the easiest to rig to something, unrig, and then have it move of its own accord so that you have, in effect, a hinge.
Roll my breakfast, 'cause I'm a hungry man. Now we're cooking. Let's shake.
And right here, that white raven is the most direct one-to-one comparison I could have made between the attraction and the animation, because the animatronic that sings that song looks exactly like that.
New York, in old Chicago town, in Hartford.
Fun fact, this was one of the first scenes I animated for this animation. It wasn't the first, this chapter. It was not the first, but it was, I believe, the second. this scene originally, due to a miscalculation, was a bit longer. I wanted all of the time periods to have like 1/4 of the song. However, because I'm not very good at maths, I did too much work for this one. So I'm just going to show it to you here because I don't want that to be lost. Here's that swamp map, by the way. If I would have had the swamp map at my disposal back then, I would have used it, but of course I did not. Also, you might be able to tell, looking at the sniper's wrists, that they don't have bodies, and that's because I had to turn the body of the sniper invisible, because else you would always see it through the crocodile skin. So that's why that looks the way it does. You can tell that I added the guitar prop to the back of the heavy that sung the Birmingham jail song in the beginning, because here is the guitar, and in the next shot it's gone. This shot was the last one that I animated for this project, actually. And you might wonder, what's the first shot you animated then? Well, this was the first shot. I began with the end. And that was for the sole reason that when I was working on the final parts of the video, and I sort of always work reluctantly on the final parts because I'm like, it's almost done, it's almost done. I to avoid that also being mixed with, you know, some slightly bittersweet moments, of course, because the project is done, I did the ending first. Also, unlike in the beginning, I actually put them in a gazebo this time. Honestly, this project, the America Sings project, I think is one of the best things I've ever done. It's not quality-wise the best, but it's been the best so far for the channel, because I have never been confronted this badly, I guess, with how much I've actually gotten better at animating. And, you know, actually putting the footage in front of me, actually seeing like things like, oh, I would have done that differently. Oh, I can do that differently now. That's one of the best feelings as an animator. I cannot describe that feeling of progression with such a direct one-to-one comparison as a single story told over multiple years. I think every animator should do something like this. Hand over the torch to you, but down the line, so that you can tell yourself, like, yeah, I am getting better. Yes, I am improving. Yes, I am not at my peak yet. Now, granted, it was diminishing returns slightly with especially comparing the third and fourth section, but you could tell between the first and final section that I did learn, I did grow, and to me, that is the most important, that I can point to that and say to myself, yes, I am better than I was back then. And honestly, I am so happy that people were excited to see the project. You know, people were very disappointed when I didn't do it within 4 years, but I took a year break. People were keenly awaiting the finale. I was just so happy that my little experiment actually got people excited. And like, the video even says it, like, thank you for sticking with me over the past 5 years. And honestly, I mean that, because it's that progression that made me want to commence a project like this, that made me want to do basically what is one 20-minute long animation. So all I can say is thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching. And I just hope you're looking forward to what I have next. Cheerio!